me? Let's pray. Our Father and our God, we are so thankful to you for your love and your blessings. We're thankful that we live in a free country like America, a state like Tennessee, and a city like East Ridge. We ask you to be with us tonight as we discuss the business that's coming before us, and pray that we'll be fair and equitable in everything that we do, and ask you to forgive us of our sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's pledge allegiance. I
pledge
pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chairperson Brawley. Here. Vice Chairperson Steele.
Here.
Mr. Baker. Mr. City.
Here.
Mr. Cog.
Here.
Mr. Penley.
Here.
Mr. Torrock.
Here.
Did I say that?
Yes, you
We're waiting right now on Attorney Litchford. He's doing some last minute changes on some things, and so what we're gonna do is we're gonna recess for 5 minutes. And till we can get in here, bring it to us. You may have to copy another piece of paper, but anyway, if you all just be patient with us, please. And let's do the rest of the business first, the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting? It's been a while, November 6th. If there's no changes or additions, do I get a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve. Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. City.
Yes.
Mr. Cog.
Yes.
Mr. Penley.
Yes.
Mr. Torrock.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Steele.
Yes.
Chairperson Brawley.
Yes. Okay, do we have any old business? Kenny, any old business? No, okay. New business, first is to discuss and take action on Red Wolves Border Region Development Agreement, I-75/6739 Ringo. Mark, are you gonna do that, or Mark's not?
Kenny and I may do it in tandem, and
Okay.
Kenny.
This is
Mr. Custer and I will do that in
Two
tandem.
more. Go around.
Okay, I have a question about the address, I-75 and 6739 Ringo Road. What is the 67?
Okay, what that is, all right, let me, so the Red Wolves, and better known, Red Wolves is what we'll call it for the meeting. The company is Sterling Holdings LLC. I think I originally had the Chattanooga Soccer Management, and that's been corrected to Sterling Holdings. They have announced a proposal for the construction of a 60-plus acre development, mixed-use development on the north part of Mac Smith Road. That address is currently known as Highway I-75. That's what the tax records reflect. So to stay consistent, I just use that address. But if you hear me say that the Red Wolves development, I'm referring to that northern portion of the Mac Smith Road development. The 6739 Ringo Road is a commercial property. I think it's on the east side of Frawley Road. The Red Wolves have already, I think they've actually already, have they already purchased it?
We have.
Okay.
Closed.
Okay, and this is, Chip Scott here is the project manager, and he may be asked, or we'll ask questions from him, but Mr. Scott's here today also representing the interest of the Red Wolves. That property they've closed on. if you've been to downtown Chattanooga off of Broad Street, the Red Wolves have opened up a retail establishment there, selling merchandise, ticket sales, other paraphernalia related to the soccer. And Mr. Martino has said he's ready to move that effective immediately to East Ridge. He wants to do that for lots of reasons, and namely because, as hopefully he has conveyed, he wants this project in East Ridge, and he wants all of it in East Ridge. He's that excited to be a part of the community. He does not want to wait, even though currently they're playing at CCS. And Mr. Custer will have to help on the soccer vernacular and stuff. I will do my best to keep up with it. He knows this, but they're playing at CCS their regular season games through a contract they have with CCS. There's ticket sales are occurring in Chattanooga right now. He wants to move, even though they're playing in Chattanooga, they want to move the ticket sales here locally effective, I think as soon as possible. Is that fair to say? And so that property is at 6739, and it's generating sales tax dollars at the time it will be selling. I do not know the baseline for that. That can be determined. The baseline is from the 2012 baseline. I think it was an office use.
That whole section is, each one of those buildings are office complexes. There's a few things that's moved into some of them, but not this building in particular.
So the baseline would be 0? All right, so
most likely it's going to be very
or small.
Very small.
Okay. So in other words, if the baseline is 0, then every dollar of retail sales generated relative to the 6739 Ringo Road is considered to be a border region dollar. And so that would be one that's reimbursable expense related to this operation.
One question.
Yes.
This is 15 miles from, is it 15 miles from the previous one?
It is, but it's also increased to the 35%, and this will be bigger than
Okay,
35%.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that's part of it.
It's a pretty good sized building, I believe. It's rather large.
Was that where the computer place used to be?
It's actually, I think,
Say that.
it's actually
Bug Busters.
Yeah.
There's I think 12 suites total, first
Oh.
and second floors.
Yeah.
Okay. And so yes,
Yeah.
Brown Brothers, didn't they use on that?
and for just sort of numbers wise, just to kind of help y'all out, and I'll stay with the 6739 property right now. Currently under Hamlin County, that is a property that's appraised value under the Hamlin County tax records is $306,400. If you take that and multiply it by 0.4, which is what the county does for commercial property to get the assessed value, you get $122,560. Total taxes being generated, total property taxes being generated from that site currently, $1,639. So we'll just, for math's sake, $1,600 essentially is what we're generating in property taxes relative to 6739 Wrinkle Road. I called Mr. Martino, asked him sale price and what he expected the appraised value to be, and he said $450,000. And so if we do a $450,000 value of the property, that's got an assessed value of $180,000. So the property taxes will go up to $2,408. So you're roughly going up $800 on the property taxes of that site alone. Not a ton, but they are going up. Local options, Mr. Martino anticipates sales to be around $2 million at that site. And that's all Red Wolf sales. Just on local option alone, which for those that may not know, the local option is one that the city is allowed to assess on top of the state sales tax at 7%. The local option for East Ridge is 2.25. You have to take out half of that because half of that is the education fund. So the 1.125 is what the city actually collects. That's not allocated or assigned to anybody. That is goes into the general fund of the city. And so when you take 1.125% of $2 million, you get $22,500. And so you've now got the $800 in increased property taxes. You've got the $22,500 if there's 2 million in sales. If there's 1 million, then just split the 22,000. You're down to 11,250. I mean, math works that way. The Board of Regents would operate under the request from the developer, Mr. Martino, or Sterling, I should say more accurately, Sterling Holdings. He's requested 97% of the Board of Regents, with the city keeping 3%. Then, if that's the case, then on $2 million, for those that may not know exactly the mathematics behind the Board of Regents, the best way to do it is this way. The state has a 7% sales tax that it assesses. That's statewide. You have to back out 1.5 for the education. Under the state law, nothing can ever encumber the state education portion. So you take out the 1.5, and the Board of Regents says that 75% of the state's portion gets returned back to the city. So you take 7% of the state sales tax, take out 1.5, which gets you to 5.5, and then 75% of 5.5 is 4.125. And so that's the best way to think of the Board of Regents dollars is for every dollar generated of retail sales, 4.125 cents comes back to the state, or comes back to the city from the state. That's not the local option. The local option is 100% the city, that doesn't go to the state. It's 2.25, as I said, but 1.25 goes to the education. The city keeps the 1.125. So when I calculated the numbers to be generated, I did the multiplier as 4.125 because that's what the city would receive as its share of the 75% of the unallocated 5.5% of the state sales tax. So if you just do we're staying with the 6739 Ringo Road property. If there's 2 million in sales, the Board of Regents dollars to be generated based upon that multiplier that I just told you of 4.125, you're going to have a total of $82,500 in Board of Regents. The city would get around roughly $2,500 of that. The developer would get $80,000 of that. So on that end, that's the smaller operations. The property that is the big one that's the subject here is the Highway I-75 property. And that's the one that's about, it's 100 acres that he's purchasing, I think. Discussions here assume he's going to use around 60% is what he can build the site upon. And the representation that we have received is that it's going to be a $125 million build out. Currently on the property, the entire property of the Highway I-75 is currently assessed or appraised value is $165,600. Multiply that. It's actually the county has it being residential right now, and so if you do that multiplier by 0.25, residential property is assessed at 25%, commercial at 40%. It's generating $553.97 of current property taxes, and that was what was verified. That's over the last, I don't know how many years. $553 is what the city has received in property taxes. So I ran sort of a schedule of a half build out and a full build out. If, let's just say it's going to be $125 million. I have no idea if it's going to actually reach that or exceed it. That's not really, take half of that, so $62,500,000. If you take $62 million, which is half of the represented build out, $62,500,000, then you get an assessed value because you get to do it at 40%, not at 25%. The 40% of $62,500,000 is $25 million. Multiply that by the property tax ratio of 1.3381, and you will get the property taxes generated on a half a build out will be $334,525. So essentially an increase of $334,000. if there's half build out.
That's per year.
Per year, that's correct. And that is 100% goes to the city. That is not shared in education funds. There's no other, it's not assigned to anybody. I mean, that goes into the general operating fund. So you get an increase on a half build out of $334,000. Local option. Depending on where we go with what type of sales, and when I say type, the amount of sales. They're going to be retail sales. We know that type. But if you're going to say I did a 4 column assessment. 20 million, 25 million, 30 million, 35 million. Mr. Martino indicated that he is very confident it's going to exceed 35 million. And I said, well, let's just stop at 35 million, just see where we work with. Just for numbers' sake, right now, the baseline for this property is 0. And so you're going from 0 sales tax generated on this property. If there are 20 million in sales at this property, you do that multiplier by 1.125, and you'll get $225,000. That's, again, I've already backed out the education fund. So if you take a half build out and do the low end of sales of 20 million, you're at roughly 334,000 plus 225. You're already close to 600,000 in property taxes and low end sales tax on the local option only. You're at 600,000. Mr. Martino represented that there's going to be 367 hotel rooms. And I said, okay, let's back that down to 250 just for conservative purposes. We did an assessment of the higher end hotels in the community. Most hotel outfitters that we talked to valued their hotels at 20, each room generates about $25,000 a year in revenue per room. I said, okay, there's going to be a convention center assessed with this development. That one actually probably generates $30,000 a year in value, but rather than go with that number, I dropped it down to $20,000 just to see what the numbers say. So instead of having 367 rooms, I'm just going to do a calculation of 250. Back that down a little bit. If you do 250 rooms at $20,000 per room, then you're at $200,000 in hotel taxes generated. Multiply that by 4%. I'm sorry, I messed it up. I'm looking at my number. 250 times 20,000. I don't know if it comes out to, when you multiply that times 4%, you get $200,000 in hotel motel tax. Hotel motel is not subject to any education fund, and they're not assigned. And I believe, I don't know, it comes back to the city in the general fund, but I think it immediately goes into, bond payoffs and tourism, I think. But
Yes.
there's, okay.
Hotel motel taxes allocated for tourism.
Okay. So, if this is a half build out, low sales of 20 million, and hotel rooms of only 250 rooms and not the 365, and you take the low end of the per room value annually of generated revenue, you're at 800,000 in revenue generated, and I haven't calculated the Board of Regent yet. Under the Board of Regent at 20 million, you're looking at Board of Regent total of 825,000. 27,000 of that roughly will go to the city. Roughly 800,000 would go to the developer. So what you've got with the property having a complete 0 baseline and having property taxes currently at 553, what you're creating under the request from the developer, if it's 97% of the Board of Regent is assigned to the developer, then it really comes out to just about a 1-to-1 ratio, developer and city on the low end. As the sales go up, you'll see, and the value you'll see, it actually comes out a little bit better. It comes out to about a 1.05 excuse me, a 1.5 to 1 ratio as the numbers get higher in favor of the city. And again, let me remind you, the border region is money that is state money. That's not the city money. If there's nothing occurring there, you get zero money. If there's something occurring there and there's no border region, you get the local option and that's it. If you're something operating there with border region, you get the local option and the state portion, the 75% of the state portion back under the border region. And so what the developers requested is 97%, and under the scenario I just gave you, you're looking roughly at a 1-to-1 ratio. For every dollar earned by the developer, you're essentially, this city's getting $1 in combination of hotel motel, property tax, local option, and its share of the border region. Just by further discussion, if you take the half build out, and I'll skip to say 30 million in sales, just to give another parameter for you all to sort of digest this. I'll stick with the half build out again and not say the full build out has occurred. If you take half build out, again, you still got that $334,000. At local option sales of 30 million, you're getting, the city would receive $360,000. So you got 360 plus your 334. So you're looking at 794 right there. Let's say the hotel, we'll stay with the hotel arrangement of only 250 rooms and just stay on low end. We'll stick with $20,000 a room, so you still get the $200,000. So you're now looking at just under $1 million if you're doing 30 million sales. Plus the border region will return back to this city. At $30 million, you're looking at $40,000 to the city. So you got $1.04 million coming back to the city.
And Mark, what I think is important for everybody to understand is to really realize, and I think you're probably fixing to explain this under projected revenues, but before we were at, just the property tax at $553 a year, but what is the net to the city? What are the city going to get? And I think that's what you're fixing to go to now.
Yeah, arguably you could take the net as 4.04 minus 553. I mean, that'd be the net. But the ratio you come out there is the developer would get around 1.2, city would get around 1.04, and that was the low end. If you took it at $25,000 a room, and he generated more than 250 rooms, I actually did a calculation where I had 275 rooms at $25,000, and I did a 75% build out. So I'm trying to stay in the middle ground. I did a 50% build out, 75% build out, and then I'll talk to you about the full build out. If there's a 75% build out, I've got a projection here that the city would receive 1.18 million, and the developer would receive 1.2. So you're kind of still at that 1-to-1 ratio, just about.
Again, 1.8 million over the 556 that we're currently getting just on property tax.
Yeah, I mean that's right. Yeah. So if
Pretty easy math.
the max build out. If let's just say we're there, we're doing a max build out at 125 million, and keep in mind, just because the build out is 125 million, you probably need to anticipate an appraised value to be probably around 140, 150 million. I'm not going to do that calculation here because I don't know. I'm not an appraiser. I'm going to keep it at 125 million because that's what he says the full bailout is going to cost. So at 125 million, you're going to jump to property taxes of $669,050. So roughly $670,000 is a max build out, plus the $2,400 from the other property, so a total of $671,000 in property taxes, which is a net of whatever that number I gave you, minus $553 and $1,600, so minus $2,000. So So you're looking basically at $671,000 would be what you're grossing on the sales, on the property taxes, excuse me. If you just do max sales of $35 million, and again, Mr. Martino has indicated it's his expectation to be much higher than that. Local option sales tax from the operations at a $35 million revenue annually is going to come out to $416,000. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt of 367 rooms, which is max build out. And let's say that he does get $30,000. At $30,000 per room, and there's 367 rooms times 4%, you're at $440,000. And then you add the Board of Regent aspect of that, the city is entitled to roughly just under $50,000. And by my calculations, when I ran those high number ones, it came out to just under $1.6 million. And so the city gets $1.6 million. The developer on his 97% of the Board of Regent would receive $1.4 million. And so if you remember earlier, I said as the numbers go up, the city actually is going to get better positioning. And it comes out to about I shouldn't say 1.5, probably closer to 1.05 if my math is, but I mean somewhat of a 1-to-1 ratio, but the city comes out a little better, about $100,000 better. That's on, again, the 30 million in sales, 35 million in sales. If he goes up to 50 million, then do the math, 50 million times 1.125, you're looking at a pretty number there, somewhere around the neighborhood, probably $525,000 of local options. So I tried to come up with a fair assessment for you that's not going to say, hey, let's start at big build out, because you're not going to have big build out. It's going to take time to build it. So I tried to kind of give you all an assessment of where you're going to sit as the incremental phasing of the construction is going to occur and what you're going to generate as it builds out. His expectation is to have this built out in 3 years. I'm not a developer. I have no idea if that's a reasonable amount or not. At a minimum, he's got 7 years to do it through the Board of Regent to get the investment period. If you recall, this time last year, the legislature passed a 5-year extension on the investment period from 2022, and now it expires in 2027. So, I should say 8.5 years technically, I guess. So, 8.5 years to get this thing done. Or no, 7.5 years. 7.5 years to get it done and built, if he wants to receive as much reimbursement for the expenses. Now, one thing I want to make sure is not misunderstood, and this may be some more just educational stuff, is he is performance driven. And not by saying he is, literally, but this agreement that I have been asked to prepare is the city is not obligated to pay him anything. This isn't anything to do with you're going to pay this amount of money even if he doesn't perform. It's all generated on sales. If he doesn't get the sales, yes, the city loses the local option.
Doesn't realize the local option.
But it does. That's probably fair. I mean, that's actually more accurate. We're not realizing something because we never had it to begin with on this property. I mean, if anything, the property taxes are the most truthful aspect because you can; those are going to be assessed regardless of if he sells $1 or not. So, you're still jumping from $553 to somewhere in the neighborhood of $330,000 up to close to $700 if he doesn't sell $1. I mean, so you're not obligating the city to anything. What you're agreeing to is to assign basically what I like to call state bonus money. That you're assigning money that the state otherwise keeps and sends to some other place in the state, but East Ridge, but has agreed to give back 75% of that, and you're saying, you know what, all right, it's somewhat found money. We're going to use that to incentivize a developer that might not otherwise come to this location to set up roots here. It is not a guarantee he gets paid back. I don't know what he's going to get paid back because it's up to performance based. I mean, at $120 million, you can see the math right now, at max build out and $35 million in sales, well, it doesn't matter about max build out, but at $35 million in sales, he's only gonna get 1.5 million, multiply that by 23 years, you're not close to 125 million. So it's not gonna reimburse him. It just allows him to get some reimbursement for the investment into this community. And again, it's money that the city would never realize. I shouldn't say without the Board of Regents. It might come without the Board of Regents. It just hadn't happened in 100 years. But with the Board of Regents, it comes in, he gets a portion of that. And so, now, I prepared a Board of Regents development agreement for you all back on Friday. I gave it to Mark Mametov, and he has sent it back now. And there are some changes that I just want to go over with them so that you know them. But, and I'm happy to give this red line. Y'all can have it. It's not it's a working document, but I'm happy to. We changed it to consistent with the red line. So, and these were what Mark Mametov recommended. Two things that the developer asked in addition to the 97%. He is purchasing, if not already contracted to purchase, some properties around the I-75 property. And he's doing that, as I understand it, for purposes of enhancing this development to gain a little bit more maneuverability for his build-out, perhaps to allow for better access to it, to get some cushion, because he is bunched up right next to the I-75 right-of-way, which is going to cause some construction feasibility issues. And so he's buying some other property, and he has asked, he said, Mark, can we get an agreement that the city would bless those acquired properties with the 97% of Board of Regents as well? And I specifically said, I don't care, I'll ask, but are you asking for anywhere in the city? And he said, I am not asking for, I can go anywhere in the city and automatically get 97%. I'm only asking for that. And the language I put in here, so you can see it, it's in your red line version. 97%, I'll paraphrase something, of the Board of Regents taxes attributable to sales or use taxes derived from the retail businesses operating on properties that are adjacent to the project property in accordance with this agreement, incorporated and added to this property. Meaning, he can't go down the West East Ridge and buy a piece of property and say I get 97%. It's got to be added to. It's got to be adjacent to. So it's just, he can't go out and cherry pick and try to undercut the city. The city's doing that to protect itself. Because if we have like Jack's, if we're offering 97%, let's say we went to Jack, I can't remember what we offered to Jack's, but we'll just say 70%. We don't want a developer to come in and say, I'll offer you 71%. So this stops that from occurring by only allowing it to be adjacent properties. And I don't think, do you know how many properties is it kind of thought about around that area, the adjacent?
I think it is just one parcel.
Okay, all right. So anyway, he has requested that be already blessed under this agreement, and so I put that in red line. The other thing he asked is in section 3.03E. He's asked that he is concerned that the interstate developments, interstate reconfiguration that they're doing or have just initiated, he is concerned that's going to interrupt the operations of his development, and I think that's with good reason. He understands he's coming into an environment that is, you've got competing companies, soccer programs. He wants the experience for the families to be top-notch. As part of that, he doesn't want traffic to be frustrating, or to the extent that it is frustrating, when the construction is completed, he hopes to have time to basically rehabilitate that dissatisfied fan, which generally takes, I don't know, if there's 5 years of construction, and let's just say 5 years of rehab thereafter. What he has asked is, Mark, could we go to the state and ask for an extension of the Board of Regents? Well, the answer to that is yes. I mean, you would be crazy not to. I mean, it's an incentive package to attract retailers to locate in this area. And so he said, okay, well, if we would you all agree to act in concert with us if we decided to start efforts of maybe lobbying to get the extension or if there's another mechanism of state, as I put it in here, state sales tax reimbursement, not city taxes, state sales tax. And I said, the city would do that for the existence of the city. I mean, until eternity, perpetuity, you would do that because it's just money that otherwise is going to end up in Memphis or, you know, inner city Nashville or Knoxville, somewhere other than East Ridge. And so, yeah, so he asked that we put that in there, and we said sure. So you'll see in section 303E, the IDB will work in concert with developer in exploring and otherwise attempting to secure extension of the existence of the Board of Region District beyond the dissolution time set forth in TCA 7-40-104. That's flowery language for 2042, excuse me. So let me read it again. We'll attempt to get an extension of the existence of the Board of Region District beyond 2042, as well as working in concert with developer to explore alternative options for state sales tax reimbursement incentive programs. To give you an example of what one of those options might be, whatever the name of the Titan Stadium is now, not Adelphia, but Nissan. When that was all done in '98 was when that stadium came about. They got a district for that stadium, and I can't remember. I've looked it up, and it's something that it's almost called like the football district or something. I don't know. It's something or the pro football district, and so basically, if you go to Nissan Stadium, for every dollar you spend there, the sales tax, 100% of the sales tax generated from that gets circled right back to the owner of that building. I guess the Titans, whoever owns it. Same thing here. For money spent, it gets circled back to pay. Now it comes to the city. We just allocate it over to the developer. But there are other potential avenues to identify sales tax generated programs to incentivize developers to come in. It's not just Board of Region that exists. If you ever go to Gatlinburg is there for, not Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge. It's there for a reason. All of that tourism dollars comes in, goes right back in. That's why you got the Smokies up near there. And it's not, they're Knoxville Smokies, but they're located in Gatlinburg, I mean, essentially. Sevier County. So, because they all get, that's why you got a Bass Pro up there. That's why you got all those commercial outlets right on the Pigeon Forge corridor right there. Because all that money gets returned back and invested in as a tourist attraction. So, I put that in there. And so that's something that he asked that we do. Okay, some of the other changes, I'll skip through the ones that have really any meaning. Look at the whereas that says, I originally had
You have a resolution now?
no, I'm on the front page of the development. Just pull it up and let you know again. Like I said, I'll try to hit the ones that have like a substantive concern and not a, I won't waste your time with stylistic or something, so. Okay. The one you originally got said, it was at the bottom of page 1, it said, whereas the developer intends to construct a retail facility or set of retail facilities. We've changed that now to say, the developer intends to construct economic development projects within the meaning of the Board of Region Act. So we're basically tailoring this back into the Board of Region. And Mark Mamatoff said you want to have that language in there. We're not really changing anything, we're just, from retail facility, we're now calling it economic development project. And that would include, as I put in here, retail facilities, hotels, a convention center. He told me to take out offices and condominiums because you don't get Board of Region return on that. That's fine. I took it out. It doesn't change anything. He's putting in condos and offices there as well. And for those that maybe don't quite know exactly what the intended project is, well, my understanding, and Mr. Scott could correct me, is he's been to the SunTrust Stadium. He's wanting to build a very mixed-use stadium, condos, restaurant, retail, and living corridor. So you sort of take a little bit of Cambridge Square locally here, mix in a little bit of the SunTrust Stadium, And
You mean like the battery down there in the factory?
correct, yeah, the battery, yeah.
Yep.
That's what, and I understand he's very good friends with the ownership of the Braves, and he's working in tandem with them to borrow a lot of their plans. Now, obviously, I don't think it's gonna be that grand scale, but
Still,
he wants a clean looking facility. He wants, if you've been to the battery, which is what the nickname is for that district down with the Braves, they've got a huge grassy area, I don't know, half acre or something. It's turfed, and you got a big screen television, and it's for kids. He's got zip lines. This is Braves Stadium. You've even got, for Braves enthusiasts, Brian Jordan and Jerome Jurinovich right there. TV settings right there. People crowding. They're talking to the guys and the fans right there. I mean, it's a neat experience if you haven't been. It is neat. Mr. Martino's words are, I want that aspect right here. I want people to walk from store to store. I want them shopping here. But he also wants offices here. He wants people here in the non-game season, whatever. He wants offices brought here. And so that's where I say look at Cambridge Square in Ooltewah, if you've been there. Take that office model planted here with the mixer and the marriage of the Braves Stadium. So that's it in a nutshell. Some people may not actually know, and there is depictions on the website of what he's wanting, but that's what he envisions. Okay. So originally it did have the term offices and condos. Mark Mamontoff said, just take it out. It's not a generator of retail border regions, so just take it out. That's fine. So, other kind of the ones that have, if you go to section 3.01, it's kind of the same thing that I just told you about. Originally, I had it stated that the developer will cause the project to be constructed and developed on the project property as a retail operated facility, including without limitation, soccer stadium, hotels. He says, you've already said what it's going to be. Just put in there, it's going to be developed on the project property as an economic development project within the meaning of the Border Region Act. So you're not really changing it. It's just he just said, keep it consistent. This is all retail to be constructed in accordance with the Border Region Act. And I said, well, that's the purpose of this, so that's fine. We are taking our. He has agreed he's not going to put pawn shops, adult stores, entertainment facilities, tanning salons, checking to cash, payday loans, or similar type establishments. He does not want that. He has agreed he will keep those out. Okay.
come on, man.
You know, as far as the other thing, I mean, 3.03D just is a requirement for him or the developers. Every year before the 30th of June, they're going to turn in their itemization of eligible costs. They have to do that anyway. We just put it in here. And so he clarified a little bit more. I put in there they had to do it not less than annually, and he said, well, actually, they need to do it before the end of June 30th. So we just said by the end of June of each fiscal year. And that makes sense because the statute says all reimbursements have to be submitted by the end of July. The last day of July have to go to the state comptroller or Department of Revenue. The commissioner evaluates it. The commissioner has 30 days to evaluate it. He ends up sending that check to the city. Generally, that last weekend of August, he has 30 days to pay it out. And then we turn around and we allocate it however we've agreed to with the various developers that we have agreements with. So, okay. Since there's no baseline tax revenue generated on this property, then we don't need to worry about the tax revenue. So I took out Section E. That is, this is what I did put in. Section 3.11. And Mr. Scott, this doesn't really change really anything. It's just, I'll read it to you. The developer acknowledges and agrees that this agreement does not and shall not be construed to indicate or imply that the IDB, acting as a regulatory permitting authority or as an instrumentality of the city, has granted or is obligated to grant or has the authority to grant any protocol or permit required by law for the development of the project. This body isn't one that grants building permits, certificate of occupancies. Mr. Mamontoff said, let's put that in there. And I don't think that's going. The developer knows that already. That's not an issue. The developer agrees to obtain and comply with all permits, license, and governmental approvals required for the development of the project and upon completion of the project, to maintain the project in compliance with all legal requirements applicable thereto. Don't think that's going to be, he's going to do that. That's the whole purpose of this. And then furthermore, the developer agrees during the term of this agreement to pay all taxes levied against the project property on or before the date that such taxes would be delinquent.
So it's boilerplate.
Yeah, I think I agree. That's it. I put it in there, and he said, let's do that. Mr. Ramtoff has helped on every one of these in the past. My guess is he's been doing more for Bristol, and we haven't done one in a while. And since the time he's been working with Bristol, he's probably enhanced or modified his version. So when I send him my version of what I've been working with and talking with the developer and negotiating back and forth, I sent it up to Mark Ramtoff. My guess is he's looked at some other ones that he's subsequently done and modified. He said, Mark, let's add this on there too. So anyway, that's it. That's really the major changes that. Nothing in there that I could go over each one. I don't think we're gonna. It's not a. If I thought it was important, I would throw it up there. So.
So all the changes were made that you said?
Yes, I did get those in there. Yeah, and so one I changed on the indemnity. At one time, it was he agrees to indemnify us only on negligence, recklessness, or intentional conduct. We took that out because the developer would have to agree or to indemnify if there was some claim of a breach of contract, which a breach of contract is not negligent, reckless, or intentional conduct. It doesn't change. It changes it, but I'm not concerned. The developer would agree to that anyway. So it's just rather than it was in there from a prior one that Mr. Mamatoff and I've done, and we saw, hey, let's not limit it to those. And so, okay. So that is essentially the development agreement for the border region relative to the Red Wolves. Mr. Scott, anything to add? One thing I didn't add, I'm sorry. And you've got, one thing not been mentioned all this is the jobs generated and the halo effect that this will have. It will ultimately, based on studies, is the property surrounding this development, at least from the research we did relative to Atlanta. I looked at one down in Houston, and I looked at one in the Memphis area, and the experience has been the property values surrounding this for a particular halo, if not an extended halo, all improved. And so, it's really a number I can't identify, put a finger on, but so the numbers I read to you there were just site-specific improvements, site-specific revenue generated. I did not account for the jobs created or jobs brought into. You've got more office space, you may have higher type of businesses, and I did not identify the impact it has, say, if they go eat. Somebody might decide they spend enough at the games, let's go to McDonald's rather than a post-game meal somewhere at $40. They're going to go. Well, obviously the McDonald's is going to improve. Alternatively, McDonald's might lose customers because people want to go eat the more expensive one. Well, good for us.
Another thing, Mark, is the housing. Just look at Highland Park. I've got a client down there who bought a house for $1,400. 3 years later, he's selling it for $329,000. So, if you're bringing a higher skill level resident into town who's willing to do a Highland Park kind of development based on the retail or the aspects of the Red Wolves Stadium, it's the halo effect becomes a ripple effect, I guess.
That's fair. That's probably a better term.
Yeah.
The ripple effect.
So
that's a great point.
Just something down the road, yeah.
Yes.
Mark, I have a question. Where exactly will the new Red Wolf Stadium be? Will it be on their property, or will it be part of?
Okay.
And will some of these additions that you talked about, will they be over there in the stadium area, or on the other side of 75?
Okay, that's a great point. Let me clarify. There are two projects, and calling them projects is probably not the greatest term of art right now. Let me characterize it as Red Wolves development, Camp Jordan. Everything I've discussed today is all Red Wolves development. Nothing here relates to the Camp Jordan. I'll discuss it in a second. So the answer to the question is, the stadium is on his site. This is the game stadium now. This is the game stadium, not the training facility.
It's the one that's down there now in Camp Jordan, the training facility?
Well, yes, but that's untouched right now
Right.
from a standpoint of conversion or
Right,
Red Wolves.
okay.
I'll talk about that in a second. But everything I talk about here is game stadium. The 5,500 seat stadium is on his site, his property. Anything he adds is related to the Red Wolves development. Again, their game stadium property that's off Mac Smith Road. So if he adds properties adjacent to this development, those are brought in under the 97% umbrella. This does not apply to anything related to the Camp Jordan. Let me skip over that one fast, because it is unrelated here, but tangentially it is related. The Camp Jordan one, what he's proposed, he basically wants to donate to this city around a $1.2 to $1.5 million training facility. And so everything I mentioned on the spreadsheet I just gave you, take those numbers and add the ripple effect, whatever that is. Take the job components to whatever that is. And you've also got a developer that says, you know what, I want to give a $1.2 to $1.5 million training facility, but he's requested it be located at Camp Jordan. The purpose that he wants it to be at Camp Jordan is because he intends to have and host clinics there, host tournaments there. He wants the high school, the East Ridge High School varsity team, he wants their games to be there. He wants soccer games, yeah. Well, he obviously is going to use it to train his team. I mean, he's going to train it. Their training time, from what we've discussed, and Kenny or Mr. Custer may be able to correct, we talked to them. Their training times is basically around 7:30 in the morning to 12. They take a break. They come back at like 1:30 and practice to about 3:30, 4 maybe. That's their time.
Which are all considered non-peak park hours as regulated by the state.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we've been told by the National Park. Those are non-peak hours, and I don't even know I don't know how often they train. I don't know that. I mean, they're in season now. I don't have no idea if they train 5 days, 6 days a week. They're traveling.
It's a 10-month season.
Yeah.
And 20 home games, I think, is what they're slated for.
For starting next year.
Starting next year.
This, to be clear, is not going to be the home stadium in Camp Jordan. This is a training facility. It's going to be he has said, about a 1,500 seat complex. But he wants to have updated locker rooms. He'll have some coach's office there, showers, and also amenities for the kids. I say the kids, the players, non-Red Wolf players that have it. Right now, we're drawing some pretty good interest on soccer tournaments, region-wide, I don't know nationwide, but certainly southeast-wise, I guess. And Adam Wilson may know that better. Mr. Custer's kids play soccer, but essentially there are some tournaments being attracted here. The intent is, with a first-class development, you're going to attract bigger tournaments. If you're not familiar with Ted Rose in Memphis, go online and check out Ted Rose. Mike Rose. I'm sorry. Mike Rose.
Been there.
Okay. I have been to that. I was in law school and I've been to it. It's a pretty phenomenal facility. But the idea is, you build a better facility, you get better quality tournaments, you get to advertise more, and you bring more people in on the weekends. Think of what that does to the sales. You bring people in on the weekends to come to weekend tournaments on Saturday morning that maybe conclude around, I have no idea, 6 o'clock, and you happen to have a home game that Saturday night. He wants to include a walk trail from the Red Wolves site under the interstate to connect, kind of a nature trail to connect with Camp Jordan. So everybody that comes to the Camp Jordan facility for weekend tournaments have an added bonus of simply leaving their cars, walking over to the Red Wolves development, getting to eat there, and then going to the game and walking right back to their car. keeping them on site. And his intent is keep them there. Don't let them go out to the Hamlin place and go eat, and then maybe they come back. He wants them there to stay. And so, hopefully, Mr. Penn, does that answer the question?
The stadium then will be over where the rest of the building will be.
The game stadium will be on the Red Wolves site west of I-75.
Okay.
Directly across from the Welcome Center.
Okay.
Yes, other side of the interstate of the Welcome Center.
I've been under the impression that the new stadium is going to be on that side, and the walk under will get you to the new stadium.
Okay,
The new
okay.
stadium's going to be over with all the other stuff.
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
The walk under will just get you to the training facility
That's correct. And the rest of Camp Jordan.
and the rest of Camp Jordan.
And so, we kind of talked about the conversion over the last month and a half, and you're going to hear more about it, but, and the conversion is just, even the state says is a bad term. We're not converting property. You're converting, if anything, you're removing restrictions on the current Osborne field is what we're talking about. And now I'm talking about Camp Jordan.
Yeah.
There are restrictions of use on that per the grants that the city received in the 70s. What was passed by the council at the last meeting was to authorize the mayor to initiate the conversion process, and that we have started that. Mr. Dorsey is well versed in the conversion, having done it at other municipalities. So we've kind of held off on moving further until he got here, so that we can figure out what areas the city can do in-house and what we may need to do. I know we're going to have to get an appraisal at some point. He may have a guy that he's used, he likes, or something, but the point is, the conversion has to occur before we can put the training facility in on that site. And so, but we're in the process of doing that. But as far as the game stadium, it's not anywhere on Camp Jordan.
But the practice field will not belong to Red Wolf. They won't own it.
You want them? No, it'll be.
But now they are going to buy the 639 Ringo Road.
I think they already have it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's answers, yes. But I think they already have it. And one thing, I guess you made a good point. They're not going to own the practice facility stadium. In fact, they're going to pay rent to the city. And so, in addition to the $1.5, $1.2 million stadium, he's going to turn around and pay rent, 40, give or take. We haven't figured it out yet, but let's assume somewhere 20, 30, 40,000 as rent for that on property that's currently not generating anything.
Even though they're going to build $1.5 million worth of additions to that field.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, we may concede some stuff to say, look, we want it turfed. And he would want it turfed. That's an expensive endeavor to turf it. We may say, I have no idea, we may say, you know what, if you agree to put that in, we may abate a rent for you, or something like that, to basically, essentially, it's a win for the city. Other thing is, as part of the conversion, we're going to add property to Camp Jordan. And we anticipate it'll be somewhere between 5 and 9 acres being added to Camp Jordan. Outside of, to be clear, it's adjacent to Camp Jordan. It's not currently Camp Jordan property. And we're going to add 5 to 9 acres. There's an algorithm as to how much has to be added. Just assume it's somewhere around 5 acres, give or take. It might be 4, but either way.
But it doesn't have to necessarily be acre for acre, it's more value to
It's
value.
value to value. So whatever the value is of the soccer field, as of today, the Osborne soccer field, whatever that appraised value is, then the city has to find replacement property adjacent to Camp Jordan that is essentially equal in value and equal or better utility of use. In other words, you can't just take a wetland and say, here you go. You've got to find equivalent valued property as well as equivalent or better in utility use. We think we have identified that. We think we have identified an owner that's going to gift it to the city, not charge the city. So in addition to what I've told you about the conversion, we're going to gain about 5 acres of land given to us, which I understand there's from the master plan of Camp Jordan, hopefully will add to other outdoor recreational activities, add to improve the Frisbee golf holes. They're trying to really, apparently that's a big thing now. They got national tournaments. I started looking into it. They got, I mean, it's world stuff. The Frisbee golf, I didn't know it, but it apparently attracts huge weekend competitions. We try to figure out a way, but ours is not currently as designed. It's 18 holes. but I don't think it's designed in a manner that gets certified or approved by whoever the sanctioning body of Frisbee golf. So we might be able to improve that and get it certified such that we attract Frisbee golf tournament.
Yeah, we're looking for outside your typical recreational sports, for outdoor adventure type stuff that MPS likes, the state likes, and not just focusing on softball, baseball, volleyball, and looking at true other aspects of outdoor recreation that other people can enjoy.
So, that's a great question. I probably figured out that the conversion is not about today, but that, you're gonna hear about it if there's confusion. Hopefully that'll allow people to kind of understand what the Red Wolves want to achieve here is not just plot a stadium on this community and say, y'all pay for it, y'all attend. He is trying his best to create a community atmosphere. He wants the stadium to be, the game stadium, to have multi-use aspects outside of soccer. I assume he means concerts. I have no idea about football, I don't know, but either way, other uses and not just, because there's only 20 soccer games, you gotta assume 10 home games or 20 home games?
20.
So 20 home games, and you got 52 weekends out of a year, that's 32 idle weekends. He's trying to figure out ways to keep people coming in, whether it's concerts or what other uses for a field can be achieved. He's trying to do it. So,
And all of this is gonna be inside the city limits of these streets.
correct. Yeah, he does own some Chattanooga property, but I don't. There's not an incentive for him to build retail up there because there's no Board of Regents dollars. I think he's wanting to use it for kind of park outdoor.
It is. The idea is park, trails, but nothing really anymore.
Not parking, but park.
Park, yeah, green space,
Yeah.
correct.
He may, he wants to add a green space element to his stadium aspect as well, development as well, not just pure concrete.
Okay, good.
So, yes, that's Mr. Cox, yes.
You know, they say there's no stupid questions, so I'll go forward with what I'm thinking. Just so I understand this, now I saw a picture of this in the paper the other day. I think everybody saw it, and it was kind of new to a lot of people because it was the first I'd heard about it, and it's the first a lot of people had heard about it, and it's a huge, Bass Pro is a big thing. This is a big thing too, from what I've seen of it. It's a big thing for East Ridge, and but to follow up on Mr. Penley's question, it's going to be behind the Super 8, headed out on this side of on the non-Bass Pro side of the interstate,
Northwest quadrant.
and that's swampland. I mean, I assume we've done that. That's going to be graded and brought up, and we'll.
I assume he has done his
Done his
homework.
work.
Absolutely, yes, and
So
we,
you're comfortable with that?
absolutely.
Rumor I've heard
I
is-
run into a problem with that, because I know that at one point in time there was a question as to whether that land was even developable. And I'm not basing that on anything scientific at all, I'm just talk, in
Yeah.
the town. Why it was never developed in the first place,
I mean, it's in a 100-year flood.
yeah, but it's satisfied to you.
Yes, absolutely. And we will be doing this, as you said, in phases. So the stadium piece and that center retail will be the first piece, and so that we'll raise that, then we'll move to the next,
So the stadium is gonna be built first or?
First.
First.
He wants those
And-
games here.
And so access to this project, I assume, would then be through in the Wally's area, where Wally's is now, in that general access entrance, you couldn't get into it on the I-75.
Well, there will be, one of the main entrances there on that, off Spring Creek across from the hospital. There's that 4-lane that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
That one, and then there'll be another one on or around the road near the Cracker Barrel.
That's right.
That area.
That Maximus. We have the engineers looking at that right now. The engineers, I understand, are in the process, and we hope to get stuff as we identify the traffic increase and how we're going to navigate and incorporate access to this site. But that is in the process. Let me add one more thing, because he is bringing it out of the 100-year flood. He recognizes a drainage, stormwater. He's already gotten engineers in there to help identify where he'll have holding bodies.
All right, you got to hold on.
This is not going to be rushed off onto,
Yeah, you gotta create the no rise.
okay, there you go. So, and that is FEMA issues, and I mean, they got, I mean, so he's got to achieve FEMA approval and can't have a rise in other areas of the 100 foot, so he can't cause it, but at the same time, he's constructing it in a manner that there isn't stormwater runoff during the construction.
So what if there was a problem with that though, down the line, have we committed ourselves to that area?
We have not, I mean, not today, we haven't. Have we committed it to, the city will commit to trying to reach a solution somehow.
I'm just, are we going to vote on this contract today, this agreement?
If there's a motion, I mean, there needs to be a motion to set.
And of course, all the development that we saw in the photograph of all of the retail developments and everything like that, the convention center and all that, that's all just a proposal right now. There's no contracts, there's nothing where this development, there's any guarantee this development's going to take place.
And I think the important thing is that with it being performance-based, if nothing happens on the property, we're not responsible for anything.
But what if happens on the front end and blocks off the remaining back end? I mean, I'm just trying to see where the city is protected. That's a huge area, 100 acres of land, and East Ridge is a lot of acres.
But
East
it's
Ridge
not city
for
money.
development.
It's not city money.
Well, I think what Mr. Cox probably asking, is as access is identified and we start the construction of access, and then all of a sudden the city started the access improvement of the roads, and then boom, there's no development. Now we've sort of committed ourselves to making this nice access that goes to the same property as this. Is that what you're asking?
Well, that and if there's no further development, if it doesn't go as projected, then where are we as a city as far as usage of that land? That we just
Well, I mean,
the border region.
It's being worse than we are now.
Well,
we don't own it.
And that was part of my question too. Is has there been any other? You know, we've been at border region now for a number of years. Has there been any other suggested use of that land, which would make this at least, you know, I mean,
well, let me say
seems
this.
to me
Every time I have heard of a developer wanting to come in, every one of them has thrown out the term stadium. Which doesn't quite answer your question. It just leads me to believe whoever these experts are that come in, I'm aware of about 3 or 4 that have at least inquired and said, "Ooh, a stadium. We want a stadium right here." So I'm guessing I've not heard of any other good use of
nothing
that.
else right now that's viable.
I've heard of outlet, you know, malls and stuff. You know, like you get the Tanger outlets at East and Hidden Forge, but you know, somebody said an IKEA, which. Don't get me wrong, I don't know, but I just know they're a huge retailer. IKEA just pulled out of the Nashville market at Cool Springs with a huge incentive deal that they were going to get, and they still pulled out saying they want to shrink their operations. IKEA is...
You all own the property.
We
You
do.
bought the property.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Do you own it or get under contract?
I believe we now own it. If not, we're closing very soon.
Okay.
I think it does close within the next 15 days.
And I think based upon, I don't know, it may be subject to this, I don't know, but it is set to close very shortly, yes.
So there's really 2 purchases, the cities, before you're buying from the city of Chattanooga and what you're buying from East Ridge.
Well, and even the Chattanooga parcel's a private owner.
A private owner.
Yeah. The city of East Ridge doesn't own any of this property anyway. It's owned by Osborne Holdings, Mr. Luke, essentially. But if there is never an item out there, then it's property that exists there today, plus...
We don't want that. We want to use it during the border region, life of the
We
border
do.
region.
That's why we're encouraged that we found somebody willing to meet whatever price Mr. Lucan has set on it. We're thrilled. I mean, we're thrilled somebody has come to... We've had a lot of people come to the table.
Right, and that's kind of where I'm heading with it, because, you know, when Bass Pro came along, you know, it was speculation as to whether this would be a really good thing, but there was nothing else out there, so we went with Bass Pro, and it turned out to be a really good thing for the city. And I'm just wondering if this isn't the same type of deal where you've got a real opportunity here to put pretty significant size development along that.
And rumor is he's already had his surveyors, scouts out there for over a month now, and he's made this decision. This fits the model of what he wants to construct. And not only does he want to move, he's wanting to move at light. I mean, he called me 2 weeks ago and said, I got to get on this board of regents, you got to move. And I said, this normally takes 2 months to prepare. So you can imagine what I've done in 2 weeks, all of this to try to get done. So this guy's moving at the light speed.
If everything went smooth, getting this approved and getting started, when would you anticipate the opening of the new stadium? Just ballpark.
Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask Mr. Martino, he will say, we will play part of our season next year in our new stadium.
All right. Okay.
I can tell you they're looking to move dirt within 8 weeks.
Within 8 weeks?
I know Bass Pro was big,
Yeah.
and everybody was all
Yeah.
big on the Bass Pro. If this project, which sounds like it's pretty good,
Yeah.
it's gonna blow that thing out of the water.
Yeah.
It
Well,
would
in
work.
terms
Let me
of
tell you right now.
revenue,
Yeah.
in terms of revenue.
Well, and
Oh,
size.
Well, having
with the battery and all
I
the
think the focus is
shops and
mixed-use
everything that
development.
you've got going
Having
on.
a true mixed-use development that is pedestrian friendly, it's a live, work, play environment, so people will move there because they can do everything. They don't even have to get in their car if they don't want to.
It'll blow the Bass Pro completely
But
out
it
of
just
the water.
creates that
You'll think that's
environment
just a,
And I will say,
that we don't have here.
one of his motivations is, I mean, obviously he loves soccer, but he's a family man, and he wants to create something that will draw families. The Camp Jordan training facility is open for youth to learn soccer and to have quality facilities. So that's part of this, is his love for the sport and family and what it can do for youth.
Well, I think this is real past due. Interstate 75 and 24.
Yeah.
If you go to Bristol and see what they've done with the money up there, and here we are, 24 and 75, nothing,
Well,
until just recent. And Camp Jordan, I've been saying it all my life, it's most unused piece of property in Chattanooga. Look at the land out there. But
have you done one of these before?
I've done similar projects.
Oh.
I will say this too. I grew up here
Oh.
in Eastwood. I haven't lived in the area in a number of years. I know Kelly and her husband, but my family we grew up in East Ridge. My
Oh.
father had a business here. I was thrilled to come back and be a part of this, especially knowing where it was going. So for me, it's a mixed reasons for
Did
supporting.
you go to school in East Ridge?
I went to East Ridge Junior High.
Did you? Okay.
Okay, any more questions? Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just interested in who's going to shoulder the expense of the roads. Will the city be paid?
Bluntly, I don't know that's been discussed. I think the
I'm sorry, but am I okay to ask a question? Yeah.
let me say it this way, Ms. Mustang. I think that hold on, Ms. Mustang. I think,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought Ms. Frawley was offended.
You're fine.
I asked a question, okay?
I think this will be something that is going to be discussed bluntly.
Right.
I don't know. No, there have not been discussions as to where we're going to do on the impact this has. I mean, from a foundation standpoint, the cities are created to provide infrastructure improvements.
I understand
They
that. I
are,
appreciate
that
that.
is their job, to provide police, service, infrastructure. But we also recognize that there's going to be a big impact on these roads. There's no, I mean, so the question will be, how do we go about trying to pay for that? I think we're going to try to get creative with it. I mean, we're getting somewhere between 800 to 1.5 million annual revenue. On some level, it's kind of like buying a Ferrari and refusing to invest in that Ferrari in maintenance. Why buy it and squander it? So I would think on some level you get 800 to 1.5 million annual revenue. Some of that will go back to fix or to improve because it makes sense to get that done. Whatever revenue you can continue to generate, now you've got a body. I mean, this is 5 to 5.5% of our budget, potentially, on the increase, on the impact it has. So that's one area the money comes from. I think the short answer is, I don't know. We have not had that discussion.
There.
It'd be safe to say that none of this land is gonna be impacted by the I-70 or 2475 work.
They've got their right of ways that are already.
But this land is not gonna be involved or impeded or.
I mean, he's,
Development will be somewhat impeded.
yeah, but that's why he's wanting to buy these properties to the west to sort of give him the cushion to back it off from the I-75. So short answer is, it will have some impact, but it's something they've already comfortable with. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to be an obstacle.
And if the infrastructure was burdened by us to accomplish, you do have the money that you're referring to, the border region when you come back, or the local option and stuff. But if I'm not mistaken, that also could be reimbursed by the border regions. So if we did spend money in the infrastructure, we then could in turn submit that for reimbursement as well.
Yes, so, yeah, actually, let's just say we take the 8 million, I'm sorry, the 800,000, let's too low end, we take the 800,000, we say, you know, we're gonna use that. We can then turn around and expense that 800,000 and say to the state, that's a reimbursement. So we get the money handed to us from the developer as a result of taxes. We turn around and use it to take out a bond that has a debt service, I'm just using numbers, 800,000, just happens to be the same. We then can turn that $800,000 expense in and get reimbursed again. So it's basically a 2-for-1 deal. I mean, is that familiar with? Yeah, I'm sorry. I could. That's the way. I mean, it doesn't come out exactly 2-for-1, but I'm just saying you get $800,000 handed to you. You use it to pay for the roads, and then you get reimbursed that $800,000 again. And so now you've got an improved road plus an additional $800,000 that you get back from the border region as our portion of the state tax. Now we may not get 100% of that back, but yes, that's another way to recycle the money. Is one way. Still go back to. No, we haven't gotten in discussions with it, so. Yeah.
The
I'm sorry.
cooperation agreement, the 303E, that wouldn't include any legal expenses.
No, I mean, if we go to, we have a lobbyist, Nicole Watson, who is our lobbyist up in Nashville right now. She's on a set retainer fee. We would utilize her to help lobby. I'm trying to bring that up, and just so everybody knows what we're talking about. We're talking about, I think it's section 3.
74104D.
What is it?
That's the time factor.
Yeah,
It's free.
here it is. 303.E. 303. If there's any extension to the border region, that's on the state level, and we would incorporate the services.
We wouldn't be obligated as a board to help finance that type of thing.
No. We would, the same thing that we
The
do.
language there.
Well, we could clarify, the city already actively tries to lobby for. We got Nicole Watson up there.
We'd be happy to lobby to extend it, but I mean, maybe engage in a legal battle or something like that would be expensive.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not intended for a legal battle. I mean, if we can get the state to approve an extension or to approve some other sort of entertainment district or something else that allows for a return of sales taxes.
Or enterprise zone or something like that.
An enterprise zone, opportunity zone, all these options that are under state law. That's something, we would help craft that legislation, but that's why we hired Ms. Watson. And she helped us last year, was instrumental in helping us get the 5-year extension. And so that's what this is intended to do.
And there's border region bills in every year.
Yeah.
To enhance, to modify maps, and we've already been discussing for the last 6 months before this came up, about other modifications that we try to make to legislation.
One of the lucky things we have is you've got former Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey. For those that may not know, Lieutenant Ron Ramsey is from Kingsport. Back in 2010 is when he got mad because big box stores were going to Virginia and not to Kingsport. So he, as Lieutenant Governor, came up with the idea of the border region. At my old firm we were working out, when we were city attorney, we got wind of that. We ran up to Nashville, met with the governor, met with the Department of Revenue, and said, East Ridge wants in on this. Bluntly, he was as mad as he could be. That's why you now have a cap on the border region. There's 3 cities, Kingsport, Bristol, and East Ridge. Because as part of the agreement, he said, fine. Because we got our application in. That was the whole legislation. We got it in, and that's when they realized, luckily, what is this? Why did we agree to this? And then they modified the legislation immediately to say it's sunset. No other cities. Memphis lost out. Chattanooga lost out. Cleveland lost out. I mean, it could have reached it. Point is, we got that as our proactive efforts, and then now every year it's been modified. And ironically, the thing is, Kingsport triggered this thing. They don't have one development, not one development.
And they're driving the modification.
And they're the one driving on. They're the one that asked for a 5-year extension because they sat on the rights, and they got it. And we said, hold on, if you're going to give it to them, well, that's when we rushed up to Nashville this time last year and rushed up and said, hold on, if you're going to give it to them, you got to give it to us. And they agreed, and that's why we have a 5-year extension. So, so the short answer is, we are trying to actively do border region modifications to help our city. If we can extend it, I will tell you, the Department of Revenue absolutely hates this bill. I mean, they just hate it. But look at what we've gotten since. I mean, arguably, Catoosa County took Cabela's, Costco, and now they've taken Food City, and they gave Food City Catoosa County gave them a wonderful deal. I mean, one that it was enough that we went to Food City and said, please don't take it, let us talk to y'all, and they basically said, no thanks. We would have liked to talk to Food City, but they didn't give us the time of day. So the point of the border region is to incentivize people that might not otherwise come. Ironically, you got a Kingsport that triggered this whole thing, and not one developed. So I guess if you got a lot of money, head up to Kingsport and see if you can get some developments up there. I mean, that's really, I mean, you be the Cavalier up there. So. Any other questions? Even if I say anything?
Sir?
Any questions? I'm sorry.
No, sir.
Okay.
Everybody's answered everything. Really good.
I just want to make sure it wasn't going to cost us an exit.
Not to my knowledge.
You know, reconfiguration or,
No, not that I'm aware of. Let me say that. I'm not aware of it, but if anything, we'd like to get an exit.
Yeah. We'd like to funnel some people over the top and right.
Yeah.
That would take out the Cracker Barrel
Yeah.
entrance a little bit.
Mayor?
The only thing I wanted to reiterate is the 97.3 that we're talking about, that is their development money that they're putting into this being reimbursed. So it's not city money that's been spent and they're getting 97% of it. It is a reimbursement of their expenses for their development, and we're taking 3% of that.
Yeah, they have to spend it.
They have to spend it to get it. It's not free money. It is a reimbursable expense, and that's what I keep trying to drive home. It's not our money. We didn't spend it. It's not our money. We're getting 3% of their money. In other cases, we're getting more depending on the agreement. But I just want to read.
By way of comparison, I agree with Mr. Bostain. This will dwarf other developments. He's asking for less. He's donating a $1.5 million stadium, and he's not asking for all of East Ridge. I mean, that's sort of one way to look at it.
Pretty much.
And he has said, he specifically says, I want to make it clear, I'm trying to communicate to this community. I'm here as an East Ridge community. I know from Utah. I can't change. I'm from Utah. He is a Buckeye graduate, so not a die-hard ball guy. But
We'll work with him on that.
I know it's a shame.
Let's get him here first, and we'll talk about
we
talk more things later.
The balls. But anyway, but he did. He has said, and I don't think he's given lip service. I really don't. You look at, if you've ever been to Deer Valley, it's probably second to, I don't know if I'd say second to Vail, but maybe Whistler Blackcomb is one of the top skiing places. And you got Michael Jordan homes there. You got
I've been there twice.
Oprah. And
Didn't know he was from there though.
Yeah, he basically took, I mean, as he'll say it, when the Olympics got announced for that area, he got all the, as he said, when you're going up the ski lift at Deer Valley, turn around. That's my area.
Wow.
Well, but he says it as humbly. I mean, he says it really. He's like, guys, if that's what you need to view my credentials, I do believe. I think he is that committed to the community. Hence why he's building at his own cost a stadium in Camp Jordan. That if he goes belly up, that stadium stays. I mean, that's, I mean, he might take a locker, you know, I mean, something that's movable, but the stadium stays.
Will that be done before the Red Wolves Stadium?
Mr. Cochran, I'll answer what I've been told. He wants to start that stadium yesterday. He's just being stopped by National Park Services.
Yeah. So we don't know yet, but as soon as is feasible.
As soon as we get, I shouldn't say soon,
And the intent.
in the event we get approval of the conversion, which we hope occurs, we don't know the timetable, anywhere between 4 months, 5 months, 9 months. The minute we get approval and we work out a use agreement with him, they're putting a shovel in the ground. I mean, he wants that in it effective next year also.
If that were to not happen, is that going to interfere with Red Wolf Stadium?
No. That's separate and apart and mutually exclusive, really. So, okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I talked a
No,
lot
that's
more.
good. No, that's fine. We need everybody to be happy, ask questions, whatever you need to know. So if there's not any more questions, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Third.
We'll do a roll call just to make it formal.
Mr. Seti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Finley?
Yes.
Mr. Torrance?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Steele? Yes. Chairperson Broughton?
Yes. Okay, that one passed. Okay, the next.
That was gonna be gone, so.
Yeah.
First to the bathroom.
Bathroom break. Yeah, we will recess for about 5 minutes. Resume the meeting, and next item on the agenda is the discuss and take action on Candlewood Suites, Water Region Development at 6519 Ringo Road. We have two gentlemen here.
Yeah, my name's Buddy Crusted, I'm attorney. This is Jasmine Patel, he's the developer, owner, the partnership that he's in, that's already has Super 8 Motel over there, so this is actually gonna add to it. And I do wanna say this, Mark, you'll appreciate this. My son, who I'm bragging on, is 19. He just bought his first house on North Smith. He lives in East Ridge now. But you talk about the halo effect, he bought a house, he bought it for 109 and the appraisal came back at 116. So it's already happened. But Jasmine can tell you all about the whole process too.
Okay. What you do?
So it's gonna be extended stay 5-story hotel indoor corridor. It's gonna be about $10.5 to $11 million. It's gonna be a Candlewood Suites. It's comes under franchisee IHG. IHG basically owned Holiday Inn, Holiday Express, State Bridge, Crown Plaza, all those bigger flags. And this is gonna be about $100 plus or $150, $130 plus per night room. So it's not gonna be a lower end when we consider it as a extended stay. It's gonna have a kitchenette and everything, but mostly all the people who's gonna stay there, it's gonna be all corporate people.
A question, are you gonna tear the hotel down that's there now, or are you just going to redo it, build on, or what?
The back building, it's kind of Super 8, kind of in L shape. So back building, we're gonna tear it off because we're gonna need some additional parking. So back building, we're gonna tear it off, but front side, we're gonna keep it.
This will be facing, it'll be close toward the interstate side, but it'll be in addition, so this will be more rooms, they're not gonna tear down the Super 8. We've already had the property subdivided, so we're actually ready to move on it, having the subdivision of the property completed. But this will be another complement, and at the same time, they'll actually do some improvements to the Super 8.
Oh, so this is in addition to the Super 8. Is there enough room back there to build another?
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, it passes all the
Yeah,
requirements.
They're
just tearing the back.
Portion
Yeah,
of
the
it.
portion
So, but you-
of the back.
But you gotta think, so if you look next to Wally's, you have like the old laundry room, the pool, all that'll be.
Yeah, okay.
So it'll be. all-
So-
From the interstate, it'll be a lot more attractive because you'll have a brand new.
So it would be
gateway.
behind than the Super 8, correct?
It'll run parallel with it, just behind Wally's.
And 83 rooms.
83 rooms, 3 stories, is that what you said?
Five.
Right now, the Super 8 on a lot of the weekends runs, 100%, full, over. So the capacity's there. They've done a study, obviously, before they would allow that flag to be flown there. And there's more than enough demand for the rooms. And you see with the new soccer thing going in,
Oh,
there's going to be even more demand.
that's true.
So you're going to see some more projects like this start to pop up.
Okay.
I think the thing with these Stridge is that we have a bad taste in our mouth for extended stays, but what you're saying is that this is gonna be high dollar rooms that,
Yes.
that the riffraff can't
It's
afford.
$100 average daily room rate, average, it fluctuates with demand.
Mhm.
But with a $100 average room rate, you're not, that's $3,000 a month or $700 a week if you were gonna stay there. And the large percentage of it's gonna be corporate type clients that are gonna be having employees come in here for whatever training or at different places for a week at a time or, an extended stay. But it'll also be available and I've stayed in some of these a lot when I travel, I have a lacrosse son, and we would do that because it was just better than a motel room. It's easier, breakfast and everything else was easier than just being stuck in a motel room. So that's kind of the benefit also.
It's gonna be a little bit bigger room because that one has a kitchen and everything. But still, now I think the new trainings, when you go by 12 by 24 room, it's gonna be a little bit more bigger. So that's why now the crowd is, like all the customers are turning into extended stay.
Okay. I did drive by one similar, and I did notice there were no balconies and all of that stuff that, sometimes could appear people put stuff on the balconies and stuff. Is
It's
it?
not gonna be,
Yeah.
it's gonna be an indoor hotel, so there's no balcony or anything.
Yeah, I think that's a good
That's a
thing.
good thing.
I think that's a good thing.
Is there a limit to how long a person can stay? You call it an extended stay. If somebody wanted to move in for a year, could they?
They can stay for, corporate travelers can stay, other than that, you can stay no more than 210 days in a calendar year.
Okay, 210, yeah.
And when you multiply that times
Yeah.
roughly $100, it'd really be more than that,
No
but
more
an
than
average
210 in a
$100,
calendar year.
average $100, that becomes very expensive to stay.
But it's,
Mention what you said about the fact that corporate's
yeah,
multiple people, but it's the
right, so one thing when we looked at the ordinance for extended stay, and that's a trade name, so for long-term stay, needless to say, you have Delta, American, and I'm just using them for an example, Delta, American, Norfolk Southern, whatever, they may go to the Candlewood or to the La Quinta or whatever and book a room for the next 5 years. But every week and night or different days, you have different pilots or whoever checking in. They just get room blocks. So we tried to create something that didn't prohibit that from happening, because those are your good visitors and you want to keep those. And with us, our close proximity to the airport, we hope we can continue to get nicer places and retain that business. Yeah.
And in addition to that, there's a CSX contract that they sent me all the paperwork, and they go like 30 rooms a day for another year. But I lost some money because I was late on Candlewood. But maybe next year, I can grab that contract and get some more revenue for Eastridge.
And he's waiting at actually it's just like another week or two, is it, that they're coming out with the actually brand new design.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the latest designed Candlewood that has all the different features. If you've ever stayed or been through one of them, really nice. So
There's not one in the area now, is there?
It's so,
I do too.
Well, there's one similar at Bonnie Oaks. Is it the Woodbridge? There's a Woodbridge one. Is it
it's
gonna
gonna
look?
be higher than, it's gonna be higher brand, because they charge like $50-$60.
Oh,
But this one gonna be a whole lot higher brand.
is it gonna look similar though? Where
Um,
there wasn't
it's-
any.
It is in,
Actually, if you go online, the Candlewood website has their whole designs out there.
Oh, okay.
They're really nice. And, you know, obviously, he's been a good corporate citizen here
Mhm.
operating the Super 8, which
I
has
have
been,
some,
Yeah, he
it's
can-
on page number 12. I think you, yeah, you have the same thing there.
Oh, that's fine. We'll share.
but he's been a great corporate citizen already for East Ridge, so it's just a compliment to kind of add that in.
Yes.
So, sorry, it's in black and white, but page number 12 has a prototype.
I need to change the address. But it, it's 65, no, 65, 6517 is the address, not 6519.
Oh, okay, I see.
What's the percentage?
60/40.
Okay.
Yeah, that was what,
While y'all look at that, just by way of information on numbers, currently this property has a Hamilton County appraisal of $340,000. Appraised or assessed value at 40%. Yeah, is $136,000. Total taxes we're generating, property taxes I should say, from this site, $1,819.82. By way of comparison, and I'm going to do this one quick, so I'm not belaboring. The representation is it's a $10 to $11.5 million build out. So let's just do the same exercise. Half build out at $5.75 million would generate just under $31,000 in taxes, property taxes. If he does the full build out of 11.5, property taxes jump up to $61,552.60. So, in other words, current is $1,800. You have a potential to jump to $61,000. Board of Region, I don't really have anything because there's not anything. There's going to be a restaurant in there, and I don't know how much Board of Region will be generated. From a hotel motels tax standpoint, you're looking at a 83 room. Mr. Patel said he's going to charge $150 a night. By way of comparison, I believe the Hampton Inn is $180 a night, and they have about $2 million annually in sales at the Hampton Inn. So you're looking at right at $25,000 per room. Let's take this down. If it's going to be $150 a room, let's just play it down that it's going to be $20,000 a room. Then this property will generate a hotel motel tax of around $66,000. So you've got property right now that doesn't have operations, and you're making $1,800. If full max build out 83 rooms at 11.5 million, you're looking at $127,000 increase. That did not include any. I don't have numbers to work with on the taxes, but from a property standpoint and a motel, you're looking at 127. Add in whatever the Board of Region is and the local option. So that's just, if you want numbers, there's your numbers.
What did you say that new address is?
The address is actually 6517, and I will fix that.
the subdivided lot?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, the numbers I gave you were based on 6517 property per the Hamilton County.
So what you'll do is reduce the motel that's there now, reduce the rooms, and then just build a new one behind it with how many rooms did you say?
83.
83 rooms.
You're only losing at Super 8, you're only losing, you haven't really been using those, because they haven't been renovated, so.
The rest was renovated over the last 2 years.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Ken.
The Super 8, yeah, the Super 8 was renovated within the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interior renovations.
I drove around it Sunday, and I didn't realize how large it is back there. But it looked nice.
Is there a
I
restaurant?
was surprised how well it looked.
They do a breakfast, but there's not a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
The Candlewood will have a restaurant.
Okay.
Well, it's got the Candlewood covered.
No restaurant.
It-
No restaurant.
It's got the-
Restaurant, sorry.
No.
It's got the Candlewood covered, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Yeah, the Candlewood
Yeah,
covered.
Yeah, which is kind of like, it's like a little store basically that you can put your room number on and you can go in there and you can get stuff that
okay.
run up to your room and eat
Oh,
your
okay. Okay.
beverages or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
Is
I
the
did
old
say that
building,
right, it is the Candlewood covered, I believe. I'm almost positive.
You're right, you're right.
is the old
You
building
stay
gonna be
there.
Candlewood too?
3 or 4 of them.
It's gonna be stay as a super.
Okay, this is totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different, yeah.
I've actually stayed at the one in Brentwood, one in Dallas,
Okay.
and one in Montgomery.
Okay. You're familiar with them then?
One thing I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
One thing I meant to add in here, and this was part of the proposal, and is that the agreement is that this remain a Candlewood Suite, that it not get sold to the Budgetel or something of that nature. It remain the Candlewood flagship. And
Or
that-
equivalent.
Or comparable.
Or comparable, whatever. I need to add that in there, if that's something you're agreeable with.
No, that's
You may want to
fine.
check
No,
affiliation.
and that actually, as you can imagine, Mark, from a accounting number standpoint, when you spend $11 million, you can't go to Budgetel.
Right.
You can't support that number on a Budgetel room rate, so, but I don't think we have any problem with that, similar, same brand.
No, I mean, I would like to keep it as I'm not gonna sell it to somebody else because of once I lose the flag, revenue goes down, maybe cut it in half or
Right.
maybe, less 60%.
Okay.
So my priority is to keep the flag because it's under the IHG and IHG performing really well when it's come to extended stay for Candlewood.
Okay. You'll see the red line I put in there when
That's
I
fine.
amend it, but it'll have that line that it is, the developer acknowledges that this is conditioned on Candlewood Suite or equivalent. We may throw, I can get an example of the Homewood Suites, is that considered an extended stay?
Town Place is a Marriott.
Town Place, I'll just put that,
Version.
something equivalent, okay. One thing the proposal here is for a 60-40 split. So the developer would get 60% of the border region, and the city would maintain the remaining 40%, is what the proposal
And
is.
we were gonna ask for 97. It's like the first one, if that's okay.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions?
Just one quick question. Across the street, there's another company that does a lot of extended stays. It's the family name in that is Patel. Do you have any affiliation or association with that group?
No.
No, and that's Mitch, Patel with Vision Hospitality. Yeah. Mitch Patel. And in India, he might not say this, so I'll tell you, in India, Patel would be
Well, I
the equivalent of Smith in America, so you would. But he's been here,
I
gosh, you've been
understand
here.
that, and I certainly didn't mean anything by that. But
Yeah,
I
if you were. if
I
it
have
was-
a conflict.
Oh, no, that's okay, I understand, yeah. Now, I will say, he's been here
I
since
didn't want to vote on
age,
something with it,
what,
I might make a
18? And I have to brag on Jasmine a little bit. Him and his brother, who are the principals in it, worked at O'Charlie's and walked back and forth home every night after they got off. When they first got here, that was their job, was working at O'Charlie's and walking back and forth. They didn't have a car or anything, so they walked back and forth home. So this is a very success story here, and very proud of what they've done. But
Nobody has any numbers, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the 60-40 split with
How much
Candlewood?
approved?
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do you want to do a roll call?
Mr. City?
Yes.
Mr. Cobb?
Yeah.
Mr. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Steele?
Yes.
Chairperson Brawley?
Okay, is there any other business? If not, I make a motion, I have accepted motion to adjourn. Let's just adjourn, okay?